Ben Detrick with us from The Ringer. He wrote the story everybody was talking about in sports yesterday. Thank you for making the time for us. I have a lot of questions. Can you take us through how long ago this story began and where it began for the uninitiated?
Yeah. Hey guys. It started. I said February 1st. Now I say that's accurate. Is when we made like some inroads. He had hit me up on Twitter and Instagram, and then by the time we actually started discussing things, I would say it was like February 1st. And he sent me an email and he outlined that there were these accounts that pointed in a direction, and he gave me some of the findings from his own research. And the way he described it was he had seen a tweet that seemed to reveal insider information about Jahlil Okafor. And that made him curious, and he found other accounts that were saying similar things. So he started running data sets, which I don't understand that much. But he started running data sets and found accounts that had similar followings and discussed similar items. A lot of people have hit me up. Is this someone who was like, a data guy who had a gripe with the Sixers and so forth? I don't have any evidence that says, yes, that's the case.
How did you vet the source?
For me, it was more about what he gave me than who gave me it. Because it was really like, here are these accounts. And if I was convinced that they were not him and it was not a elaborate ruse being played upon me, and I was, of course, really skeptical. I didn't want to look like an idiot. So I went through what he gave me more than being, okay, who is this person? Because ultimately, whether he had a axe to grind or not, it was more about what I was going to do with the information.
Is there anything in the story, because these things are really uncomfortable, all doing this and then having the person in the middle of it deny it this strongly? Is there anything in the story that you wish you had back, or are you good with 100% of the reporting?
100%.
Okay. That's a good answer, because so you weren't shaken in any way by how strongly he was denying everything yesterday.
Well, as to your point, you would like things to be more neat. You'd like things to fall into a bow in a way that is very easy. I didn't think that was going to be the case with this story. I thought the response would be what it was. I think we were very careful and looked things over and worded things, and it was about Venn diagrams that all went in a certain direction, and we didn't make any specific accusations. That was the story. We presented evidence, and people could draw their own conclusions.
Is it possible, like when the idea is thrown around of it was a family member, it was someone else, it's not him, like what can you talk about there? I understand there's a difference between a reporter and an opinion giver. What can you tell us there about if it might be, like what might be his immunity here?
I don't know. It's tough for me to answer that, but I think there were a lot of theories and a lot of compelling, I don't want to use the word evidence, but compelling items that were brought up late last night on Twitter that also point to that direction, maybe in a slightly different way. I'm sorry, I just have to be careful here.
No, I understand. I'm just curious because we can't go back and fix this. And you laid out the circumstantial evidence, like so people understand. These things are vetted by lawyers, and as he just told you, he's been working on this for months, okay? This is not sloppy journalism. This is him putting together a string of dots on the internet. But we consumed it as if it was fact yesterday when it was circumstantial evidence, and you were careful with your hedging of words. But is it possible that it's his wife?
I think the Venn diagrams that include one person really include another. I would say that there are a lot of commonalities between different people. I think that's the best way that I can phrase it. If you look at Toronto and you look at, Toronto youth basketball, and you look at University of Chicago basketball, and you look at the Sixers, and you look at the grievances that were expressed throughout, there's more than one person that could be.
What do you say to people who say to you, Ben, that you have been a supporter of Sam Hinkie and a guy that has been on Brian Colangelo basically the entire season for some of his moves?
I would say that's the reason that the source came to me, So I felt that there was an opportunity for someone who was trying to make me look bad. So I approached it with a lot of skepticism. I think, you're on Twitter and I'm saying, I'm critiquing moves. That's different from what I'm putting my name on as a journalist and what I'm giving to the Ringer or what I'm giving to the New York Times or whoever sees fit to actually pay me for this.
He did a very good job here. This Ringer story is comprehensive. Ben Detrick with us on ESPN Radio. As you survey everything that happened here and everything that you reported, what would you say is the most convincing evidence that this was him doing it?
Well, I'm not saying it was him because, as I said, there's been evidence that came out in the last couple days last night that do not necessarily say it was him. I believe that the Venn diagrams that say who this is coming from are intact, and we were correct. In terms of the most compelling evidence was when I contacted the team, I spoke with their PR representative, and then he spoke with one person. And after that conversation, 3 of the accounts that I had not mentioned went dark. I didn't tell anybody. The source didn't know I was contacting the team at that point. They went down.
You did that strategically, correct?
Yeah. The idea was to try to make stronger IRL evidence, for lack of a better phrase. We had a lot of Twitter forensics. We had a lot of circumstantial stuff, and there was a way to narrow the focus with information that was not on the internet, if that makes sense.
Ben, I know you're sticking to your story, and you should. But if it's not him, then what?
I'm not saying it's him.
Yeah, that's the thing. We jumped to that conclusion. The media was real eager to jump to that conclusion. I'm telling you, the story is thorough. And can you explain to people who don't understand, Ben, what this has to go through before you're allowed to put it online? Like, this is the difference between fake news and real news in 2018 journalism. Please explain to people how thorough you have to be about this as a contributor to the New York Times and someone who's doing journalism for the Ringer.
I think it's getting as many people involved as and whether it's editors, people with ideas, people with legal understanding, people who understand verbiage, phraseology, et cetera, people who can poke holes in your ideas and your theories and make sure that everything stands up. And I think we went extra hard to ensure that this information was all accurate and that we didn't say anything that was not proven by those things.
What's the information that came out last night? Because it's a lot easier when the entire internet is trying to solve the mystery and has all the right questions. What's the evidence that came out last night that you're like, I wish we'd done that. That would have been a good thing to do.
Oh, well, here's the thing. When reporting this story, because of how delicate it was and because these accounts could go offline, I wasn't able to talk to people. I wasn't able to do certain things. So even scrolling through these accounts was stressful. Because if I hit like accidentally, the whole thing might go bust. So once it was out there, and I think it's amazing the work that people did so fast, and they're so much smarter and more hardworking than I am, and they in 24 hours just opened this entire other element to the story. But I just was under a very there was a lot of restrictions. It was very difficult. You couldn't contact people. You couldn't talk about it publicly. So are there things that I wish we had found now when I see what people did? Sure. It just was a lot more difficult to find at that point.
All right, Ben, help us out with something. Was Simmons at all happy, like a little smile anything, when he learned the news?
He just told me that he was happy we ran the story after it ran. He did not say anything about being gleeful or anything in that way whatsoever. He was just like, hey, good work, man. Like, that was it.
What's your sense, though,
extent of it.
What's your sense, though? I mean, pretty well.
You're going to keep pushing this. Yeah. You're going to keep doing. This is the place that you're going to choose to be the badgering reporter. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's really all I care about.
Okay. Right. All right. So, all right. Well, then let's just. Did Simmons did he order the code red? If the same story was something you had on Danny Ainge, is Simmons running it?
I trust that he would let me do my job.